leave that road open for those of us who are
for Doc Swinson
good products. For Doc Swinson, for other people too. I learn a lot from
no, I got
a lot of other blenders out there.
We have a PR person too. I understand.
Yeah, right.
Welcome to episode 76 of the Whiskey and Whitetails podcast. Today is June 6th. We are your hosts. I'm Matt.
I'm Gus.
We're coming to you live with Jesse Parker from Doc Swinson's in Washington State. Jesse, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Matt. Gus, thank you so much for having me on this podcast. I'm excited to see what we can get into.
Same. Thank you for coming. And for anybody who wants to check us out, you can go to whiskeyandwhitetails.com. Check out our gear. We don't sell gear. You can check out all of our bourbon barrel, handmade bourbon barrel products, including our smoker kits, Glencairns, all kinds of stuff. And then if you want to get in on the inside scoop, we got a Patreon page. You can go to patreon.com/Whiskey and Whitetails. And this is also on the Waypoint Network. So thank you to the Waypoint family for having us.
Yeah.
We have to say that, right?
Yeah, I guess we used to have to say that now.
We do have to say that now. So, anyway.
We recently joined a podcast network, so we have to plug them now.
We don't have to. We have the joy of plugging.
That's right.
Very cool. That's awesome. That's exciting.
It is. It's cool. It's a new age for us. So you guys have sent us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 samples, and we're excited to dive into it. And before I get started, is there anything anyone should know about Doc Swinson's? Just if they never heard of you, this is what we are.
Yeah, I mean, we specialize in finding really great whiskeys or really good whiskeys and then blending them to make really great whiskeys. That is really our goal here. So leveraging some really amazing distillers around the country and then manipulating it in the way we want to really make something that we think pops and that really represents who we are as a brand. And people seem to be really responding well to it across the nation.
That's awesome because we also really enjoy blending. It's one of the things that we do a lot is we will blend whiskeys together to make something that we like.
It's
love
fun.
Blending. It's a good time.
That's awesome. It's really underappreciated here, especially in the United States. I hate to say it.
You're right.
Everybody talks about the distiller, but the reality is most of us are actually blenders at heart.
Yes, for sure.
That's how the product ends up in the bottle.
And blending is way harder of a job than distilling, if I must say.
It can be very difficult. I've done both.
Yeah.
Blending takes a lot more creative energy out of you, let me tell you.
For sure.
Yeah. And what we did last year, we did these two. We blended our own bottles and
also MGP juice, which I understand you're familiar with.
I'm very familiar with. It's great.
Yes.
That was just two. Well, it ended up being 4 little bottles. It took us 4 hours, it seemed like, and it was exhausted afterwards.
Yeah. We sampled, 20, 30 barrels and finally came up with we were going to do more than 2, but in the end of the day, we had 2 that just really stood out to us. And we're like, let's start with 50-50. And we did 50-50 and we were blown away at how good it was. And we're like, all right, we've been here 4 hours. Let's cut it.
Hey, now welcome to my life. I have to take breaks from it. I'm like, okay, not this week. No blending done this week. Gotta move on.
Yeah.
Gotta give the liver a break.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. So what do I do first? I'm going to do the old debate, sourcing versus distilling. A lot of people, you see that there's a brand that comes out and they go, well, they don't distill, they just source. And then it's like, well, I mean, who cares? Does it taste good? Do you really care if they distilled it or they blended it? Yeah. And at the end of the day, most distillers blend anyway. So it doesn't really, if they made their own stuff or they got it from somewhere else. So I wanted to dive into that first, just to get it out of the way. Sourcing versus distilling. And then we'll get into these samples.
Yeah, sure. Should I mostly describe what Doc Swinson does in particular, or is there a specific question that I should maybe target first right off the bat here?
Whichever one, but more like, quit worrying about this is source juice. Quit worrying about it.
It's not fake. So, I mean, I don't know. Here's always kind of an example I like to tell people. It's my steak analogy, basically. Most people don't raise their own cows, but they certainly love making their steak and barbecuing that steak. They love seasoning it in the way they do. They perfectly make, their barbecue, whatever they're doing at the right temperature, exactly how they want it. Maybe it's a cast iron pan, however you like doing it. The point is, you usually don't raise your own cow. You usually don't go grow your own pepper. Yeah, right. You usually don't harvest your own salt. But you might curate the pieces that are the best. for example. So you go and find the best steak that you can get, whether it's down at the local butchers, maybe you have family, maybe you go in on a cow, who knows? And then you find the salt that works the best for you. Is it something, dug out of the earth? Is it from the sea? Et cetera. What kind of pepper do you like? What other kind of seasonings do you like? And you create that product or that end steak that is absolutely delicious and to die for. And you're probably really proud of that. And a lot of people think, holy shit, that's good. Yeah. That's what we do. We may not distill the bourbon, but we still have our hands involved in the entire process. Sometimes we buy juice that's already 5 to 10 years old. We do curate every single one of our blends, so we don't release anything that isn't blended at our facility. So, for example, you can go buy a bottle of MGP from one group and a bottle of something that's a blend of MGP products from us, and they'll taste completely different.
Right. So
it's really up to what you think is the best in the end. And we think we do a pretty exceptional job here at Doc Swinson's. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't have a company for very long.
And I agree with you. And it's funny because some companies get away with it and some don't. For instance, Smoke Wagon, for instance, it's like huge and it's all source blended stuff. And it just depends on how you do it and what you get known for.
And oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
But from a business perspective, I feel like it's actually really smart, right?
Yeah.
You're not having to invest as much money in the overhead costs associated with distilling. You can still get great whiskey and blend and finish and create phenomenal products that can get to the market a lot quicker without all the additional overhead costs and having to wait for distillate to age and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one reason why we got into it. For example, I've worked with plenty of whiskeys that were made before I had a driver's license, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
And I obviously couldn't have done that without sourcing. It's also a pretty big part of the whiskey industry, to be honest with you. I mean, there's quite a few famous names out there. A lot of people will say, for example, Johnny Walker, you know where all that comes from, right?
Yeah.
It's a myriad of different distilleries and it's compiled together to make the best product they can from the inputs they have. Yep. And that's really what we're trying to focus on. We might not distill and handpick our grains, but we do pick our barrels. We do blend the different ages. We do age them differently. We're not just buying the barrels, bringing them here and dumping them. For example, unless it's single barrel, of course, but that is still handpicked. We go through every single barrel and say, this is good for single barrel. Let's use this for this, or this is really out there for this particular client because we know they like something fruitier. Maybe this client likes something spicier. So we do go through everything here before it ends up in a bottle. And if it's not good, we don't actually bottle it. And I have proof of that if you ever show up here.
We'll come drink the stuff you don't want to bottle.
Yeah.
That's totally fair. We should release like a don't
buy this
edition. Yeah.
Don't buy this. Just put the do not enter sign on it, and then I bet you'll sell it.
Actually, we probably would. Yeah. I think that was Compass Box that did that. This is not a luxury whiskey, and it was quite expensive. They did a great job at that.
It was like Elon Musk with the flamethrower. He said, "Do not buy this."
Yeah.
And then they sold out in like 2 days, like 30,000 flamethrowers.
Yeah. Well, I had a Progress barrel select from you when I was in Florida last week, and so that's they don't have Doc Swinson's here. We can't get it in South Carolina. At least I've never seen it anywhere that I shop. But
I think we're working on it.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to know that it wasn't
a long time.
It wasn't because I didn't see it. I'm glad to know that it's not here.
We are familiar with how long it can take to get distribution. So,
but that was the first time I had it, and a guy that I was on the trip with, he's a bourbon guy, and he went to a liquor store that had I went there the next day, they have all kinds of stuff, and that's what he picked because he's never heard of it. And I was like, oh, how interesting. I'm actually going to sit down with their head blender and next weekend. And it's so we probably drank a little bit too much that day, and then we came back to the hotel, and he was like, you want to taste this or what? And I was like, yeah. So I popped it and did a proper chug right off the bat, and I loved it. And I wish I could remember more of it, but we've got 5 here in front of us. Yeah. Which ones should we start with?
Thank you. So of the lineup that you all have, which I'm pretty sure is the same one I have right here, sitting here, is I usually like to start the rye, to be honest, because it is kind of the more oddball out.
The alter ego rye?
There should be, I think it's the Solera Method Rye alter ego.
Yep, Solera Pyramid, batch number 2. Got it.
Yeah, that's it. That's always a pretty solid one to start with. I think it kind of wakes the palate up to some really good flavors, especially because it has it's a little bit sweeter than some of the bourbons, actually, due to the rum cask finish.
And I love a good rye.
And it's a little bit lower proof at 95 proof compared to everything else is definitely higher than that.
So I'll show you a straight rye aged in rum, cask, Solera. What's the pyramid? What's that mean?
Yeah, our sales guy loves using that term because it gives you a visual, which is he's not wrong. Actually, the setup right behind me is actually a pyramid.
Okay,
I know this is recorded, so most people probably can't see it. But this represents one of the things that originally started the rum cask pyramid. If I can get this camera to actually stay, I don't like being moved. I've realized.
That's all good.
So the Solera method is a method of basically fractional blending that has existed for hundreds of years, primarily out of the sherry industry. Quite a few other distilled spirits plants use it as well. It's quite common in like Central and South American rums. And basically the idea is you have a pyramid. On the bottom of the pyramid, you have a whole set of barrels, let's just say there's 10 or something. And you end up taking off a small portion of that, maybe 20%, 15 to 20%. And you batch that together and bottle it. And then you replace that portion you removed from the bottom tier of the Solera with the next row up.
Okay. I know how
and
Soleras
then you
work.
That all the way up. So
yeah.
And then you put new product in the top,
In
theory, right?
Gotcha.
In our case, we don't put new product. We put a blend of 2 different rye whiskeys, which is what you're tasting now, into previously used bourbon barrels that were then used to age rums, a number of different rums, 4 in this case, for a period of time. And that rye whiskey goes into those, and that gets emptied into the Solera. So that was our new make, is actually this already finished rye rum product, or rye whiskey finished in rum cask, that then goes into a Solera to be mingled amongst 164 different barrels. It's an incredibly complex system.
Wow.
And it's about 24 foot tall in the back of our warehouse over here. It's quite large.
That's one thing I noticed on the Alter Ego is how many different types of wood: American oak, cognac, Pedro Jimenez, and then Oloroso, and then you have the Fooder, and it's like, I'm guessing that's how you do it. Is they're all Solera, or are those actually dumped?
That's actually a couple different products. So the Solera method rye in particular is just ex-bourbon cask that held rum for a period of time. And then the rye has gone into them.
Okay.
There's all American white oak, standard ASB barrels from a number of different cooperages and regions of the United States, but no finishing cask kind of things coming out of Europe or anything like that.
Okay.
That would be the next product we're actually going to try.
All right. Well, back to this rye.
Oh, that's good.
I like the tinge.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All the floral notes, and there's a sweetness to it. I'm guessing the rum.
Yeah, absolutely. When we first set out to make a rum finished rye, we were looking for something that was kind of in the opposite direction of what was really in the market already, which I'm sure most of you are very familiar with, the Angel's Envy. Mm-hmm. There's only a few rum finished ryes, at least when we started, maybe a handful, less than 6 or so. And we thought it would be fun to take it a different direction. And that was kind of where I wanted to pull my inspiration from, was more bright, sweet and or citric like rums. So we work with rums between 4 different nations, mostly Spanish style. So they're a little bit more light bodied, along with a little bit of Jamaican as well, to kind of add some nice fruity characteristics to it. And then age our rye whiskey, which is between, it's actually all over 6 years, or approximately 6 years old now in the Solera. We started when it was only like 3.5, which is pretty incredible. 3.5 to 6 year blend. And then everything in there now is about 6 years old. And we really wanted to complement the rye, some of the characteristics in the rye, which is like apples and pears as well, with really classic Caribbean baking spices, cloves, cinnamon, nutmeg. And then, of course, you get that really nice sweetness from the sugar cane itself and the rum.
I think it's very
So
good.
it's a totally different take than what you've probably ever tried as far as a rye whiskey finished in rum casks.
It's way different than Angel's Envy. There's definitely a lot more baking spice to it.
Mm-hmm.
Which I like.
It doesn't have that traditional kind of peppery bite that a rye does.
It has it on the nose, but not on the palate.
It's not as hard on the palate. It's much brighter, which is a good word you used earlier. And then it's got a very creamy mouthfeel, which I don't always typically get from a rye either. But this is really very enjoyable.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we've actually found a lot of people who don't like rye whiskeys seem to really like this rye whiskey as well, which is great. I mean, rye whiskeys are one of my favorite whiskeys. It's kind of what got me into American whiskey. In fact, I like the spicy characteristics. I know it's a turnoff for a lot of people, and I wanted to make something that would kind of be a nice gateway into ryes. And this seems to fill that gap pretty darn well, actually. So this is kind of what we created.
It has like an Irish whiskey nose to it almost. Yeah, I like it a lot.
It also mixes incredibly well. I know that might be sacrilegious to some people, but let me tell you, this actually beautifully mixes in a cocktail. You can make a good Sazerac with it, or if you're feeling, it's fall time, hot spice cider, it gets everybody's heart going.
We like whiskey, however anyone else likes whiskey. There's no judgment here.
Yeah, we like cocktails. We'll if you're in the mood for, we talk about it all the time. Sometimes I'm grilling or barbecuing in the backyard, and I just want some whiskey with some Sprite, or and a tumbler with some ice and just something to sip on. You don't have to.
I drink sweet tea and bourbon all the time, so
yeah, there we go.
True, proper Southern drink.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got to enjoy your whiskey, right? And it calls for something for every occasion. Like this, I love. This is like I always call this the beach whiskey because this is great kicking around on the beaches when it's warm out.
Yeah.
In fact, it like kind of pulls out some more coconut characteristics from the lactones in the oak.
Yeah.
When it gets warmer, which is pretty wild, that you'd never suspect.
And I'll nerd out on the things that the oak pulls. As you know, we're pretty big into bourbon barrels. We like the wood.
I think you're the only podcast I've ever been on, or a group like this I've ever been on, that actually has real barrels behind you besides me. So, so thank you.
Real barrels. We work with them every day. That's kind of how we got into all this. Is just working with bourbon barrels. I mean, making stuff out of it, and we did the executive bourbon steward class, so we know a little bit about what we're talking about. A lot of people just shoot from the hip. I've learned.
Yeah.
But I know what lactones are.
What's that?
I said I know what lactones are.
Woo, most people don't, right?
Yeah.
I mean, why would you?
Yeah.
Sounds like something you paint your car with.
Right? Yeah. And then acetones to clean the car with.
Right.
Yes. Oh man! Actually, I've checked out your swag shop and stuff online. You got to do some really cool stuff with barrels. I did check that out.
Thanks.
I wish I was more of a cigar aficionado, but some cool cigar holders, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, we've been going heavy in the cigar world lately.
Yeah, it makes sense. Great compliment. It smells great. I love tobacco and a good bourbon.
Oh yeah,
the smell. I just I personally don't smoke, so
I mean, Gus smokes way more than I do, but it's I do enjoy a cigar here and there, but I can't smoke a cigar every day. It's like a special occasion. It's like a reward.
Yeah. Goes with the steak too.
Oh yeah. Dude, cigar, steak, and bourbon. Yeah, we're talking now.
We're all in heaven.
That's a
party.
Night.
Yeah.
So what's next?
And then one thing to keep in mind about the rye too is it's because it isn't a Solera system, it's technically aging until we get rid of the Solera, which who knows? That could be beyond my life. I have no idea. So it is ever changing, which is one reason why we do put batch numbers on everything too. So as much as we do keep a pretty good eye on consistency, there are some little bit of movements in flavor profile as we change as well.
Do you have coopers on staff? So if the barrel leaks, you fix it, or you just replace barrels?
That's mostly me.
Nice. Nice.
I've had the privilege of working with a lot of barrels over the almost 10 years I've been doing this now. And in fact, I've recoopered all of the fooders that I use for some of our projects as well, because they've all been very faulty when I get them.
Yeah, well, they're gigantic, right? They're 600 liters, right?
Yeah. We've got 3,000 liter size.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, most of them. So think of a Mini Cooper stood up on its side, and that's how big our barrels are.
They use them mainly for beer, right?
Yeah,
and
beer,
cognac.
and then cognac is really quite common as well, and then a lot of wines throughout Europe too.
We were doing our background research on Doc Swinson, just watching some other not anybody interviewing you, but we wanted to see reviews of the whiskey, and it was funny watching them read through the barrels, and they'd get to that one and be like, "Fouder?" I was like, "No, it's a fooder. You never heard of a fooder barrel?" It's like, Always
I've
been.
heard so many different terms for it too, and honestly, I have a tendency of making up names and stuff that nobody could pronounce anyways on my bottles. So
Yeah.
I guess it just comes with the territory.
I only know it because of Rodenbach. Rodenbach is like
Yeah,
a huge fooder.
the
the-
Fooder Forest,
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sweet. Yeah. So that's cool. Yeah. The cooperage part is very interesting. We went to the Brown Foreman cooperage and got a tour. We were the fourth people in there since 2020.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was like a pretty exclusive tour, and it was amazing to watch, and the guys up front that are putting the reeds in and fixing, air leaks and stuff. And they're like, yeah, each one of these guys has 20 plus years experience. And to think about what because we take barrels apart all the time, but to watch these guys knock the hoops off and not collapse the barrel, pull a stave out, replace it, and it's like, man, I don't know. It's just fascinating.
It's an art form.
It's definitely an art form. That's a lot of talent and skill in art form. My barrels fall apart. So
Same. Awesome.
Yeah. So we thinking the next one here, or
Yeah. Let's do it.
all right. So what I usually like to dive into is our Blender's Cut, our straight bourbon whiskey.
Oh yeah.
It's 5 years old at a minimum. Actually, some of the future barrels might come out as close to 6 soon. And it's 115 proof, and it is truly a cask strength product. I use a type of blending technique that we kind of developed here in house that mixes a myriad of different, a huge matrix basically of different proof points, as well as flavor profiles that I think will match well together amongst 2 different mash bills. And then I blend them all so that they reach 115 proof.
Nice.
Okay.
And at most, they might be licked with a hint of water, just to be legal.
Yeah.
For bottling strength, but it's usually less than 0.2 proof is what we have to adjust it for.
Oh, wow.
Which is an incredibly labor-intensive blending technique, but it allows us to maintain that really nice high proof point. So it stays 115 every single time we release it. And in addition, it maintains its cask strength and the most boldness and flavors. And that was really the goal behind Blender's Cut.
And this one's full American oak on the nose.
Yeah.
And this is the MGP, the 75, 21, 4.
Yeah, it's the 21 rye and the 36 rye blended together in a secretive proportions.
Secretive. Man, that's some spearmint on the mouth. Mm. Yeah, I'm about it.
Most people have a hard time believing it's only 5 years old, we've found. That's usually the commentary we kind of get back from people. A lot of people think it hits more in that 7 to 9 year range, 7 to 8.
Especially in the climate that you're in. It's 5 years isn't a long time.
We do age. The initial portion of the aging is all done in the Midwest, so it still has a very nice typical bourbon profile. And then when they reach a certain age, usually it's about 4.5 or so, we start moving them into Washington, which we're very much like Scotland. We're right on the water. We're just south of Vancouver, Canada. So you get that nice maritime air.
Yeah.
So we kind of get that dual climate aging thing going on, which adds a really nice mellow kind of creamy characteristic to all of our whiskeys as well.
There's definitely a lot of cream to that. I like how much the oak stands out in this.
Yeah, we're kind of barrel fiends here.
Oh yeah.
All in good company.
So you source from everybody, right? So
we do. The majority of the products, in fact, actually everything we're going to be tasting today is all MGP based over the course of over 4 different mash bills. 2 in bourbon and 2 in rye, of course. They're all quite popular MGP mash bills, but they're all blended. The only thing released that is not blended is, of course, the single barrel.
Right.
That wouldn't make any sense.
And then the barrels you get from everywhere, Independent Stave and Kelvin and just whatever you can get your hands on.
Oh, correct. Yeah, absolutely. Mostly whatever we can get our hands on. But a lot of them do come from Speyside. ISCs are wonderful. They're like little golden nuggets when I get them.
For sure.
And then some nice Kelvins as well, which are some of my favorites, especially for our rye.
Yeah, the Kelvins are nice. We went to we did a distillery tour at Peerless, and I guess all they get is Kelvins. I was like, well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, they're really nice.
it's funny. Sometimes we even get requests for our single barrels because like, hey, can we just have a Kelvin or an ISC? And I'll be like, maybe if I can find one that I don't already want.
That makes total sense.
We do get that request quite often. That seems to be the kind of the new thing is wet cooperage. What is the provenance of the oak?
Really
is pretty important. We're finding that more often.
Yeah.
Everybody likes that Missouri wood.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, it's some of the best. It's so tasty. It's got great flavors.
Yeah, we learned a lot about the wood that one tree can only make 3 barrels, and then it's like the bottom 3 sections of the tree, then the top goes to flooring and everything. But they were saying like a tree right next to the other, like 2 trees standing next to each other will create different profiles.
Yep.
I mean, well, that's absolutely. When picking out all the single barrels, I go through every single barrel that comes through here and allocate some of them directly towards single barrels. If we produce, 200 a year, for example, I'll go through all those barrels and I'll taste them all back to back. I have a huge sampling kit. I have them pre-pulled, and I'll go through and I'll allocate. And these are, for example, we'll have a whole, 200 barrels or so that are all from the exact same production day.
Yeah.
And each and every single one of those barrels. So theoretically, they're all basically next to each other in a rick house. They're all the same age, everything. Totally different.
Yeah.
Yep.
Completely wild, which is great. That's what makes my job quite entertaining, especially when it comes to blending, because you can really, pull from certain areas to create a new flavor. And
it keeps you employed because they can't just go, okay, well, we know that these 2 barrels create this. So next time we get these 2 barrels, we don't need Jesse anymore. We can just blend these 2 barrels together. And they're like, well, this tastes like crap. It's like, yeah, because you need Jesse.
Hopefully that's what they think, right?
Well, if it's not, I'll write them a letter.
Perfect. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I love this.
This is really good. I'm not going to be able to drink all of these.
No, and feel free. I'm not offended if you got to dump them out, whatever.
No, they won't. They won't get dumped out.
No, we'll put them back in the thing.
I'll do that before it gets thrown out for sure.
Yeah. Although if we drink them all, we got to call Ubers, and then like the wives get mad, and they got to bring us back up here, and
I had a question for you. You have you sort of categorize your releases by flagship, which I think is pretty straightforward, right? That's your sort of flagship product that you're trying to release consistently, but then you also have exploratory and rare. How do you make your decision to what those are going to be?
So just to clarify, we've changed up some marketing terms over the last few years. We were building this brand really just kind of as we go, to be honest. It's entirely done in house.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, I designed the labels, for example. We've kind of solidified our lines, and our main one is our alter ego line, which is the first one we tried. And then we have our blender's cut line, which is the second one we just tried, the bourbon. And those fall under our core line. So we have 3 core products, soon to be a 4th actually, that in theory will be released as often as the market wants it to be, and as widespread as we could possibly get it. And that'll be made up of 2 ryes and 2 bourbons. One of each will be finished and the other 2 will be straight, a blend. And then we have our exploratory cask line, which is really whenever we feel like releasing it, depending on exactly how it tastes. When we batch them, they could range anywhere from 30 cases all the way up to 1,000, just depending on what we produce and when we want to release it.
Gotcha.
And that's where we really get to play, though. So we may never release some of those products again.
Okay.
That's where we find some pretty rare barrels, from somewhere overseas, or maybe it's a nice toasted line. Maybe it's what we're going to try at the end of this. Some exclusive products. And then rare is kind of a subsect of exploratory, where we come across a really great selection of barrels. Yeah. Typically that is just old barrels which are virtually impossible to find anymore.
Sure.
So that's that, the only rare release we've ever done is actually our 15-year bourbons.
Okay. Cool.
Oh, wow. 15. How hard is it to get those, or is that in shop only? Do you guys have an open store?
We don't actually. Well, we have an online store. I don't think we have any 15-year in it at all. But is that what you meant by that? Where could we get?
Yeah, could I walk in and buy a 15-year?
Oh, Unfortunately, no. I can't even buy it.
No? Oh, man.
No. I wish.
Yeah.
No, we actually released most of our 15-year almost 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
That's kind of what skyrocketed Doc Swinson's into, mostly the Reddit community and people such as yourselves who really appreciate whiskeys. And it was a great shout out to the little teeny blender in the Pacific Northwest called Doc Swinson's.
Yeah.
And we had to follow it up with something. And that's when we started releasing the core lines. To be honest, and that's mostly because it's pretty rare that I ever get to find something that's older than 8 years old anymore.
Oh yeah, it's the market has been sucking barrels out of warehouses, probably prematurely.
Yeah, it's basically gone. We're pretty fortunate enough that we have another side of our business that focuses on private label for like grocery store groups and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
So I also have a lot of experience in blending. You name it.
Yeah.
Anything, flavored vodkas, rums, high end, low end. I've done quite a lot of it actually, which is pretty fun too, to be honest. And a lot of people don't know that about our company. But our true love is Doc Swinson's. That's where the four of us who really started the company got together, and we just made a couple barrels a year, and that was it. And now it's grown into something where we're processing more than 1,000 barrels a year right now.
Wow.
So.
Hold on one second. We're going to
if you know anybody that's got 15-year bourbon, please give me a call.
We're going to turn this. There we go. Sorry.
I had Discord open. It was
making beeps.
Beeps and notifications.
Yeah, if we find any 15-year bourbon, we'll probably keep it for ourselves, but I'll send you half the barrel.
We'll let you know we found
Perfect. Hey, that's more than I actually anticipated. I figured that was exactly what would come out of everybody's mouth. So I'll just keep it for me, which is totally understandable because I'd probably do the same.
Dude, I'll share. I'll send you half.
Fair enough. We just don't find that much. But if you're interested in looking for especially specialty releases, we tend to hold back a pretty small number of cases, and sell on our online store only. Which is you can find it at docswhiskey.com or docswinsons.com. And you just go to, I think it said Bottle Shop is what it's called, and you can go and click and see what we have available and order. And if you're in, I believe it's 39 of the states we could ship to. If not, hopefully you have a friend in one of those states.
Yeah.
And,
or you can go to discord.com/whiskey-whitetails and you can join up, or maybe there's somebody in one of those states that can help you. It's all about community, man.
The online community.
It's all about community. It's who you know.
Yep.
What you can get.
Sharing little bottles.
That's it.
That's it. Quite a bit.
All right. What are we doing next?
So we're going to dive into the Alter Ego Triple Cask, which is a straight bourbon whiskey finished in cognac, and two different sherry casks. So Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez sherry, which is something that it really takes a lot of my attention up because I have to go through every single barrel, and each batch is specifically a blend of barrels that I think would complement each other the most. It's also part of our core line, so in theory, you should be able to find it quite often.
The Triple Cask, and this is, as you said, just to read it back, Pedro Jimenez sherry, Oloroso cognac, and this is a 95.8.
Yep. It's pretty thick. It's got a really nice kind of dessert quality to it as well.
Oh yeah. The sherry actually pokes out a pretty good amount.
Oh wow.
And I have yet to learn how to pull French oak flavors out. So I had a question. So it goes in a French oak and an American oak and a Pedro Jimenez and a sherry barrel? Or do you have barrels made of staves of all those things?
No. So I'm a sucker for what I call large format aging. So I use a mixture of barrels anywhere from 200 liters all the way up to 600. And most of these are 600 liters, and they were commonly used in systems that had sherry or cognacs in them for over 20 years.
Wow.
And I bring those barrels straight in from Europe, evaluate them here once they get here, and then fill them with bourbon. And then I pull my selections several months down the road for this blend. So no, they are not recoopered barrels or anything like that. They come directly from the producers in Europe and to my door. Which is a headache, but it's great when it happens right.
Well, now I got a question. I'm gonna blow a spot here that's gonna tickle some nerves. So if a company like, I don't know, Good Times Bourbon were to make a blended bourbon that's sherry cask or whatever, and they somehow do it in like a week. What's going on there?
To be honest with you, I hate to say this, I don't pay as much attention to maybe other producers out there as
I'm just saying,
people.
As you said it takes months, but this guy's doing it in a week. How is that possible?
So I guess my simple answer to that would be everybody has a different perspective of how long something should finish for. I mean, there's some incredible blenders out there that say no more than 45 days, you'll ruin it. There's other blenders out there that'll say years. That's what you want. What I've found is every barrel is going to tell you its truth in time. And so you just keep paying attention. We're in a really great size point where we're big enough to have Doc Swinsons across the country and in a couple other countries so far. And I can still pay that much attention to it.
Yeah.
And not be just completely drunk out of my mind all day.
Yeah.
No, I just have a tasting schedule, to be honest. And I kind of just go through and pick out all the barrels that I think would work the best. But I personally am a fan of more time, the better. But that doesn't work for every product I've also found over the years. Like I said, we only bottle stuff when we believe it's truly good and ready. If not, we won't bottle it. And I do have examples of that I've made my calls on, and maybe they aged a little too long. But in the case of this, our large format casks are a lot more mellow than you would with a smaller cask, right? You have less surface area in contact with the whiskey itself. Therefore, it tends to it allows more oxidative characteristics to happen to the whiskey, which is great. It kind of helps round out the flavor profiles without shocking it too much because they are larger casks typically. And I usually err on the side of between 45 days and upwards of a year. Wow. So, and every barrel is different. Like I said, and I can't stress that enough. I don't just fill them for 45 days and dump them out and batch it. I know a lot of people do that. As far as a week, that's particularly short. I have no idea. If that's what they have, great.
My guess is they're adding flavoring to it, and they're adding sherry to it, and they're doing those things. I don't think they're getting that flavor from the barrel. Not in a week.
I mean,
sounds right?
I mean, you've all blended stuff, like you said. Have you ever just taken a bottle of Pedro Jimenez sherry and put it, a couple drops in some whiskey?
Well, yeah, I've done it with sherry.
Works.
I've put sherry in bourbon, yeah, and it tastes delicious. But that's not what I'm paying for.
It's a cocktail.
Exactly.
That's how cocktails are made.
Thank you. That's all I was trying to get at.
Yeah, I get you. Everybody has their different opinions on it. I'm a romantic at heart, so give me time, man. I want all the time in the world. Trust me. I don't know if my accountants always love it, but that's okay.
Well, I like your style.
They're good with it. And to be fair, a lot of my techniques and where I've learned a lot of my knowledge really came from primarily cognac, for example, and sherry industries. So I tend to lean on what these people have done for hundreds of years and try and adapt that to American whiskey. And that's where a lot of my technique has come from.
Do you hold your glass that way too?
I do not.
Okay.
Pretty classic.
Yeah. That's the move. What do you think about this one?
It's I've been trying to, on the nose, I get this sweet something, and I don't know why it reminds me of like cake icing, because I know that's probably not accurate, if that makes sense, but it's sweet.
Everyone's taste and profile is different.
Yeah,
so you can taste and smell whatever you like.
It's true. I think one of the biggest things that was ever told to me when I was a kid was you should just tell people what you actually believe it tastes like. I happened to, when I was a kid, grew up spending some time with a good friend. We would spend time in Traverse City, and his aunt was a Grand Sommelier, and she used to say, just speak up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because the reality is we all do taste different. And some people really know their stuff, but don't be too afraid, because the reality is you will pull out different characteristics that you'll be familiar with. And the more you do it, like anything, you'll start understanding it even better and better.
Yeah. When we teach classes, we tell people, don't give me flavors. Tell me what it reminds you of. Think of something that's happened in your life. What does that make you think of? And usually there's a flavor you can find in there.
Absolutely. I mean, that's really probably one of the coolest things about your sense of smell, right? And sense of taste is they're arguably some of the most underappreciated senses, because they actually are some of the strongest senses you have, and they directly link to memories, which is absolutely insane. Not much else really does that. Quite to the same scale.
They'll say stuff like, it reminds me of grandma's house, and she makes shortbread cookies and all that stuff. Like, there you go. See, now you're talking dusty old woman smell and shortbread cookies. Like, you're getting some smells in there. Like, that's what you're smelling. So take that memory and just dive in and we'll
Run with
work
it.
through it together.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what makes it fun, right? I mean, it's like
Absolutely.
reliving these deep memories and be like, oh yeah, totally. Oh, this was a cool time. And who doesn't love going down memory road once in a while? I mean, everybody does it, even if nobody wants to hear it.
I mean, we want to hear it. That's the favorite thing about like the whole background of the company is like we go to hunt clubs and we just sit around the fire and talk. And it's like you taste a whiskey and you're like, man, this reminds me of the first time my dad took me hunting, and then tell me that story. And it's a cool story, you know, and you leave, you know, I love it.
Yep.
Love it.
Absolutely. I wouldn't say I'm a hunter by any means, but I used to go as a kid once in a while. I learned a lot about just archery. I wouldn't say bow hunting. I never did any of it. I always thought it'd be neat. But I did go to a few, invited some friends, hunts and whatnot. And it was great just kicking around the fireplace and having all these amazing stories from people.
Yeah.
So I hear you on that. I mean, what's a better place to do it?
Well, it's also like primitive, you know, it's carnal nature that we used to sit around and we'd hunt together and then sit around at night and cook food and have campfire. And that's what brought people together and made your tribe strong, because you had these bonds at night where you're drinking mead or whatever. Yeah. And before distillation. And yeah, it's like, you bring somebody into that's never been to it and they sit down and they experience it. They're like, I totally get it. I completely understand what you're doing now. It's like, yeah.
100%. I mean, especially, and whiskey really adds to that, I think, because it is already quite a natural process, and everything that has to do with it comes from the earth, right?
Right.
I mean, you get all those characteristics out of it. Wine calls it terroir, right? I mean, it's the same thing.
Right.
You're picking up the dirtiness, from the oak. I mean, none of these barrels, especially in whiskey, are very clean, which is great. We like that. We want that flavor to be imparted in the whiskey. The grain itself. I mean, everything is incredible.
We also tell everybody that who you are as a person is probably 2 drinks deep. Who you are walking around.
So we're on number 3, right? No.
Yeah. It lives you up. You start talking and you forget kind of like
all those little
the social constructs that we have to adhere to.
Those little walls that we put up because we don't want to come across this way or that way. Their little insecurities tend to fade away, and
you stop sucking your gut in, and you kind of just relax and just.
I get it. That's what I'm doing right now.
Same.
Oh man, that's wonderful. And if you're ever curious, where to find our products too, hopefully we'll be in South Carolina soon, for the record. But our website, Doc's Whiskey, also has a locator on. You can type in your zip, and it should pop up some areas near you, hopefully.
Cool.
Well, we're looking forward to it showing up here. These last 2, so these are the 2 new ones, right? Well, we can make a trip to you.
Oh, absolutely.
That'd be cool. Seriously, you're all welcome to. We don't have a taste room or anything like that, but I'll gladly show you through the warehouse and pull some samples right out of the barrel. You could try, and we are working on a whole new line of finishing casks. So
you make a half day of it, and we're there.
It'll be a full day. I already know me, so
we're all in on a full day. Yeah, that's an easy sell. Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Absolutely.
So these next 2 are no one's had before. We're the first ones ever.
Yes, basically. First, any kind of tasting. Yeah, actually, yeah. In fact, we just pulled these out of the batches this week and then wrapped them up and sent them to you last minute. I hand did it myself, in fact, because I was like, these guys got to try these.
Awesome.
Well, we're very excited about that.
To be honest with you, I thought she was exaggerating a little bit when she kind of explained that in the email. It's like, oh, well, I'm sure they've sent it to other people, and I'm sure that's been tasted and passed around.
They may have, but for this podcast, we're the first ones.
You're definitely the first podcast that has certainly tried it. I can tell you that.
Cool.
So you're on that one. I did a little tasting a week or so ago with one of these, and it's they're both ryes. It was the one, the Jamaican rum cask one. I did a tasting with a group of people recently, private tasting, and otherwise the other one, nobody's tried except around here.
Cool.
Well, we would like to also set up a private tasting with you for our Patreon guys. So we'll set that up after. We don't do it now, but yeah. So if you're hearing this and you're not in Patreon, you should hook it up because it's coming. All right.
That sounds great.
So can I pick which one we do first, or do you need us to do it in your order?
Well, I'll tell you what. Read the labels and tell me what one you think might overtake the other one.
All right. So we got Smoke on Water. It's rye whiskey finished in Scotch quarter casks, and then we have Funky Drummer, which is rye whiskey. So I think that the Scotch is going to overtake
probably
the Jamaican. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's only because I guess I didn't put on the label, but that is a peated Scotch quarter cask.
Oh yeah.
So,
all right. Well, let's go with the Jamaican rum.
That goes last.
Did I
that
guess
my
right?
suggestion, because people just taste that one a lot. And they're like, oh, that's still there.
yeah. I'm gonna taste that one tomorrow morning. Is what you're saying?
Actually, it goes great with breakfast. I can confirm that.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with Scotch and breakfast. Scotch and eggs. You ever had a Scotch
Winston
egg?
Churchill breakfast.
Yeah, Winston Churchill
no
has
kidding.
Scotch every morning. All right, I am a huge fan of rye whiskey and Jamaican cask. Just before we even get into it,
Right on.
huge fan. Every time I see one, I buy it. And
He does. I can attest.
It's a problem because I love Jamaican rum. Like,
Yes.
dude,
It's a hidden thing that I think a lot of people don't realize. Everyone wants to put up there and fly their whiskey flag, but deep down inside, they all like rum. They just don't know it yet.
you like
Amen to
rum?
that.
You love rum?
I love it. So rum is actually originally my first spirit of choice. It was what my dad drank. I loved it as a kid. My parents were relatively liberal about alcohol, if you can imagine.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with rum at a pretty young age. I blended some rums before.
Have you ever had Frigate Reserve?
I have not. Oh, no, sorry. I have. I had the opportunity to taste that if it's the same one I'm thinking of, a couple of years ago in California, actually.
They have like an 8, a 12, and a 21. Do you know which one you had?
Oh, you're kidding. No, it's probably like an 8 or something.
I'm going to send you some of the 21. You have to try it. This is the Bourbon Drinkers rum. It's like our favorite rum on the planet.
Yeah, I was really on the fence about rums, and it was I could take it or leave it. And then we did a podcast with one of the gentlemen that found the company, and we drank the 21 year for that podcast, and it is unbelievable. Like it's one of the few rums that I can just pour neat into a glass and just drink it and enjoy it like it is.
Well, it's like, Madeira. Awesome. Sometimes you crave Madeira, and you're like, I'm just going to pour me a glass of Madeira real quick. I crave this 21. Sometimes I'll come home and be like, I just want one glass of this 21 Frigate Reserve. It's Don Pancho's is who it is.
Whoa, no way, huh?
Yeah. I'm gonna send you. I'll send you more. I'll send you a couple little. I'll send you like 4 or 6 ounces of it.
We did
I'd be honored to. I love rums. It's something that hopefully one day in my future I'll get to blend rums.
And we did
really blend rums.
Yeah. We did the podcast with him. He tells the story about how they got to the sourcing and basically
they flew to Panama to meet him, didn't know who he was. The guy didn't speak English, and then they had a translator, and he's talking to the translator, and they brought out a bunch of stuff for him to taste, and he was like, this is what I want. And they tell him, and then Don Pancho looks at him and goes, that's mine. Why do you like mine? So he spoke English the whole time, but they talk about dropping off cases out in the middle of the ocean. They got to go pick it up because they can't import it because it doesn't have tax stamps on it. It's a wild story.
Yeah.
I'll send you some, man. You'll love it.
That would be. I would love that. I'm a huge fan of exchanging whiskeys and rums when I can, because that helps me as a blender too to understand it.
Oh yeah.
Especially when Washington doesn't have always the best selection of these things either, so it's a little bit hard unless I'm out and about. I hope this one stands up for you and you like it.
And this is 106 proof. That's probably one of the higher proof Jamaican rums I've had.
Yes, this is. So the very first one we tried, that rye whiskey is a blend of 2 rye mash bills, 95 and 51 MGP. It's 5 years old, and I actually diluted it down with some water to about 103 proof, which was a very typical, what we call the golden proof back in the day, about 100 years ago or so. It really aids in pulling out certain parts of the oak that you normally wouldn't get at a higher proof. And then it's placed in these freshly dumped Jamaican rum casks. And I love these casks because I'll be honest, when I get them so fresh, usually I could get some rum out of them.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Which is great for the rye. And they typically age anywhere from 4 to 8 months in these Jamaican rum casks.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, this is phenomenal.
Man.
And this one will be coming out soon in June, or we'll be bottling it in June, should be hitting market shelf somewhere in July, end of July. And I fortunately don't exactly know where it'll be going, but like I said, there's some limited quantities on our website.
Can we get an email drop on that? On when they'll be available on the website?
Yeah, that's another thing on our website. If you sign up for what's called the Cool Kids Club.
Yeah, he mentioned that earlier.
Yep.
I designed the website years ago and I just made up random names and somehow it's stuck.
It works.
So the Cool Kids Club, you can put your email in there, and we should be able to drop when things are coming out and kind of where they are too.
Cool.
At least that's the goal. We're a pretty teeny company, so things don't always happen exactly how we want them to.
That's good, man. That's good. It's good to be small and be popular than it is to be big and be swamped.
Yeah. I'm feeling swamped these days, which is great. It's good news. People are taking the whiskey in a great way.
So you running 10-hour days? Are you up to that yet?
I don't think I've done something less than what feels like 14-hour days in the last 2.5 years.
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
To be fair, I work hard and I like to play hard. I'm really into outdoor activities, so big into the sailing and snowboarding and stuff like that. So
cool. Sailing's cool.
Yeah, in the Northwest, if you don't do it, there's something wrong with you. I don't know.
Really? I spent a summer in.
To be fair, most people almost never go sailing. They just have a boat if they're lucky enough to do that. But I grew up on an island and just really loved it. It's a place of peace, but it's also incredibly challenging mentally and physically. So I do recommend it if you can sometime.
Yeah, stay away from the boom.
Yeah, you know why they call it a boom, right?
Because it'll hit your head.
It makes the sound called boom.
Yeah.
Every time somebody news on a boat, we're like, okay, this is why it's called this. Trust me.
Yeah, keep your head down. Yeah, I learned on really small little boats, like single pilot boats. But even those broomsticks spin around, hit you in the neck, and you'll learn real quick.
Absolutely. That's the same thing. I learned on those things too. I've flipped quite a few of them.
Yeah.
And they make, when you're kids, they make little helmets for you. You could wear a bike helmet, they recommend, because people do get whacked by them.
Yeah, I didn't get a helmet.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't give me one either if it makes you feel any better.
Brain injuries are fun.
Yeah.
It makes you a more interesting adult. Well, I love this. This is fantastic.
This is very good.
Yeah, and this one's called Funky Drummer. I'd show you a label, but I don't even have one of those yet. So
it's a great name.
Our CFO is really into music, so a lot of our bottles will, between him and I, we usually name our products, and he usually drops some really great, odes to famous musicians.
Yeah, Funky Drummer goes well with a Jamaican rum.
Yeah. I like it. What do these QR codes on the bottles do?
They just take you to our website. So if you want to sign up for the Cool Kids Club, find our bottle shop, or look for a bottle near you, just use your phone, pop open the QR, and it'll take you right to the homepage, and you can navigate pretty easily through there.
And for those listening and watching, you can go to the description at the bottom. We will have links to everything, as well as information on every single bottle that we've tasted. And we have one more left where we're getting into the peat. So before we get into that, Whiskey Awards. I want to talk Whiskey Awards.
All right.
So if you get an award I guess my point is I see so many of them and I'm like, who are these people? Like they got gold by whatever. So I'm like, well, what if we just did the Whiskey and Whitetails Whiskey Awards and we pick our favorite, we send you an award and you can put it on your website. We got the Whiskey and Whitetails Little Urban Achievers Award. That's a Big Lebowski joke.
That's excellent. But honestly, you totally could. We get bombarded with people trying to submit or get us to submit bottles all the time. We're like, we've never heard of this award group. And
that's what I thought.
It's like $1,000, and we're like, what a great business model.
What if we do it for free? We just do it for free. We'll just send you a gold trophy. It's not real gold, obviously. I mean, copper.
That's understandable.
So these organizations just invite you to give them money in exchange for an award.
That's what I thought was going on.
Yeah.
Because I wondered if there's a difference between a blender and a distiller getting an award. So a distiller gets best whiskey of the year, but a distiller gets best whiskey of the year, but can a blender get best whiskey of the year from a category that a distiller would get? I guess that was my question.
Every and to be fair, some of them are some of the awards are bodies are really great and incredibly dedicated to what they actually do, so they're really worth listening to. And then some of them, I don't know, maybe not.
Yeah.
But most of the ones people have heard of are really reputable. That's the word I keep looking for here.
Okay.
Are incredibly reputable groups, and they pull from a lot of the people that are well regarded in the industry as excellent tasters or blenders, or people sometimes actually in the industry, which is incredible. Actually on the blending side, so it is worth sometimes paying attention to. And the question, I guess the answer I have for your question is every award group or award body does it a little bit differently, I've noticed. So a lot of them don't specify non-distiller versus distiller. A couple of them do, but most don't do that. They really just judge the juice based on the juice.
Which is the way it should be.
Is the whiskey good? Yes, no. Here's what we think it's worth.
Yeah.
That's how most of them go, which does mean something. If you're batting in those, golds, double golds, platinums, etc., you're probably doing pretty well. There's a lot of whiskeys, for example, that don't even make the cut for a medal either.
Yeah.
And that just don't even get mentioned. So if you're batting high in those and you're doing it consistently, then you probably worth checking out more often than not.
Well, we Whiskey and Whitetails are going to don you, Jesse Parker, with
Perfect
Blender of the Century for the Whiskey and Whitetails Award. So there you go.
I'll take it. No,
Yeah.
I love it.
Add that to your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
I could do that if I ever find that password again.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, no kidding. I think the only place I can get into it is my phone.
Yeah.
I don't know
Me too, because it just saved it.
Yeah. Like that works. And then I get an alert like, oh, by the way, this password is not secure.
Yep.
It's been scraped. So as we pour this one, this is the Smoke on the Water. And this is the rye whiskey finished in the Scotch quarter cask, 114.2 proof. And this is the exploratory cask.
Yes, we've never released this one before. Just like the Funky Drummer. In fact, we're releasing, I think it's 8 new exploratory casks, I believe, is what I'm going to put out in the next 2 months.
Nice.
And they're pretty small. They're only about 80 to 200 cases or so each. That's it. And those are 6-pack cases, so it's even smaller than you think.
Yeah.
This one in particular was a harebrained idea. I'm a big fan of smoky things. I really like a good smoked scotch from time to time, a good peated scotch. And I've always wanted to play with it as a finishing cask. And for years, I was pretty nervous about it because can you imagine? Either people usually love it or they hate it. Mm-hmm. And then how is it going to affect something a little bit more delicate or sharp, like an American whiskey,
Sure.
compared to something that's all malt based. And I got my hands on a couple quarter casks, and I tell you the name, but I can imagine you can figure it out pretty easily.
Yeah.
Scotch quarter casks. There's only one place that does it, to my knowledge. And I thought the rye would be the most balanced with it, to be honest. So this is utilizing the same rye whiskey that was in the first one you tried. So a blend of 2 different mash bills, watered down to, or proof down to 103 proof, and then put in these X quarter casks, peated Scotch quarter casks, for approximately 8 months. They all vary. Once again, I don't just put a time on it and go. I pick each barrel and when I feel like they're ready to. So this one's a little bit harebrained and out there, but
it picked up that iodine.
Yep.
I don't hate the nose. I'm not a huge peated fan. I do like it from time to time, but I feel like it carries over to the next day like a cigar.
It does. Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I like cigars when I was a little bit younger. I love the smell of them, but from a distance, for the same reason, because it just made everything taste like a cigar the next day.
Right. Yep. That's crazy how much it picked up in only 8 months. I mean, it really pulled that peat flavor out of it. Or the nose.
In fact, you want to hear something even more wild? It actually mellowed out. The first few months, it was much more peat, much more that reek characteristic coming through. And then it's actually quite mellowed out. And I guess you should tell me about the flavor.
That is actually...
That is interesting.
That is not... what I expected. It's better than I expected to not like it, but I actually hold on. Before I say I like it, let me drink it again.
Chew on this one for a while. I think this is what I always classify as a chewy whiskey. You got to hang out with it for a period of time and let it kind of, let yourself melt down to it a little bit.
It is fascinating how that iodine Band-Aid flavor, it like starts here and just wraps around your mouth and kind of envelops your mouth. But it still has that rye to it, and it pairs, for some reason, it pairs very well. I wanted to hate it. I fully intended on talking shit right on here, but...
It's totally fair. I
like
blame you for doing it if you didn't like it. I know a lot of people don't like this particular kind of characteristic, and it's something I've wanted to try for a long time, and I felt like it was the time to release a couple of these casks and see what people thought.
So sometimes, well, a lot of times, the flavors that those medicinal flavors that are synonymous with peat, they're just so overpowering.
This one fades. Like the peat flavors are starting to go away.
It's just enough that it's enjoyable. It doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't. It's not overpowering. But like you said, it pairs well with the typical rye notes as well. This is really good. I
gotta
really enjoy
be
this.
honest with you here. So you guys sent us 2 of each, and we've been splitting. So we saved the other 5 for Patreon. And so I swear to God, this is what I said. Before we even started this, I got on Patreon and I said, guess what? We got double samples. And so we're going to figure out how to give these away. And I said, who likes peated Scotch ryes? Because the first person that said, I like them, I was going to send them the bottle.
Surprise, nobody's getting that.
I'm keeping that.
Cheers to that statement.
That's fantastic.
I think so.
Yeah, this is really good.
It's so you just really got to chew on. And so something that also we do here at Docs, and what I really pride myself on is, keep in mind, under the Exploratory Cask series, I'm learning through this process, right? I'm subjecting different whiskeys to different kind of casks based upon what I truly believe I think they will do the best in. I'm pulling them when I think they're really quite good. Now, keep in mind, I like to push things more and more and more. Like, I want to let them sit in the barrel longer. I want them to rest longer. I want them to marry longer. And sometimes you end up with different flavor profiles that you didn't expect when you started. And what I'm really trying to say is there's points in time during this aging that now I know I will pull them at different rates compared to what I did for this round.
Right.
So this particular release is going to be, in my opinion, this is more savory. And then the next time I do this, if people don't reject the bottles, I don't think people will. I think you're giving me my affirmation here, to be honest, gentlemen. I'm going to focus on something that I found during the last 8 months, and then there's a fruitier characteristic that is incredibly inviting as well.
If you could get them,
focus on that in the next round.
If you can get them to buy the bottle, they will like it. Your issue is going to be getting them to buy it. That's the only thing. But once they taste it, they're going to love it. I'm going to tell you what just because I like to think, what food could I pair this with? I immediately think, this is going to sound weird because I've never done it before, but pork chop with pear preserves on top of the pork chop, and this I think would be a fantastic meal, because I get like a weird, not quite pear, but like that genre of summer fruit on top, and I think for some reason just like a smoked pork chop with pear preserves, I think it would be really good.
I mean, that makes me hungry. I'm not even kidding. I'm going to try that one. Because that's the truth. The Rye Whiskey has a lot of those kind of heavier fruit characteristics in it. Yep. And I figured that would balance beautifully with the smoke. And a treat I used to have when I was younger was, we had a lot of Italian plums. And you ever put them on the barbecue?
Oh, yeah.
They're phenomenal.
Yes.
It's the weirdest thing. You never think about it. Do it.
Yeah, let's try it out.
Some really good plums, sugary, throw them on the barbecue, really hot barbecue, they'll caramelize, they're really tasty.
Sounds awesome.
It's like figs.
Yeah.
That's kind of, what's that, figs?
I've done it with figs. I have a fig tree in my yard. I've grilled them, and they are good.
Oh, I got to try that one. I haven't tried that one yet.
You should do a fig old fashioned. Turn it into simple syrup.
Yeah. That's
you're kidding.
No, dude.
Delicious.
It's money.
Okay, all right. See, this is why these things are great. I got to learn so much.
Oh, yeah. All we do is experiment. I think whiskey by itself is fine, but it honestly, like, I've been drinking it for years, I don't know, 15,
Long
20
time.
years. Like, it gets boring, how many times can I drink, something out of the bottle? So it's, in order to keep it interesting, I experiment a lot. when I get home tonight, I'm pulling, rose petals. I have a rose. I'm going to pull the rose. I'm pull full buds off the rose, and I got a new ice maker, and I'm going to put the rose in the ball ice makers and make clear ice with the rose in it.
Oh, beautiful.
And I have I'm going to add Angostura bitters to it. So as it melts, you'll get the rose petal kind of flavor. Like, I just like playing. Who knows what that's going to taste like, but I'm going to find out.
Well, you obviously make good blenders because one, you've done it.
Oh, yeah.
2, you like to experiment. That's really, that's what I'm doing. And it's having, sometimes the access to it and the willingness to move forward and try something and also fail. That kind of makes the difference. And honestly, if I could recommend anything to anybody, I imagine you might all agree, try different things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do it. Like for all the listeners out there, which I imagine your listeners are probably into it because they're listening to you.
Oh, yeah.
But, pick up something different off the shelf that you haven't.
Sure.
And you might find something that you love even more than you've had ever.
We preach blending all the time. Like, it's something that we do pretty regularly. We've made private, Whiskey and Whitetails labels for stuff that we've blended together, and it's Patreon only stuff. We don't sell anything, but
just fun. Yeah, just have fun with it.
Maybe one day we'll come to Doc Swinson's and do our own blend and leave with a couple bottles that we can share.
That would be super cool. Like I said, honestly, you're invited. Come check it out sometime. If you're ever in the Northwest, it's beautiful up here. Come in the summer. It's way better. It's only about 2 months long here. So,
what are those 2 months?
After July 5th.
Okay.
So yeah, somewhere around July 5th to mid-September really is kind of the lucky spots.
August is pretty slow for us, so maybe we'll this year's crazy, but next year, August,
perfect.
We should plan something for next year in August.
Yeah.
Hey, we'll have even more barrels here, let me tell you.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
That'll be killer. I'm glad you liked this one. This is like I said, it's a chewy whiskey. You got to hang out with it for a while and let it kind of sink in.
Yeah, it's really good. I would love to pair that like he was talking with a meal. I can think of a bunch of different things that would go well with that. Yeah. But yeah, that's very, very good.
You should definitely let us know on the drop so we can we'll sign up for the Cool Guys Club and
perfect.
And be able to get it.
Obviously, y'all going to help me sell it because y'all say it's really good. So hopefully people will pick up the bottle of the shelf. Hey. So it's people like you that really going to help me get my oddball products off the shelf. And people seem to really enjoy them.
If we can if we end up getting the drop, if we get the email in time and we can order a bottle, we will 100% promote that. It's
definitely.
Both of these. Cool. These are both very good. I love them both. Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll be free brand ambassadors for those two right there.
Hey, we've got some, we'll get some swag items out there. We'll grease the wheels a bit.
That'd be perfect. Yeah. We love giveaways too.
What's that?
We love giveaways too. So anything to fun to give away.
Cool. Yeah. I'll talk to the team.
We'll talk to marketing and I'll get my marketing people in touch with your marketing people.
Your marketing people. Perfect.
We are the marketing people, by the way.
Yeah. It'll be me.
I think I'm a quarter of the marketing team myself, so I get it.
It works. It works. You got to have your hands in everything in order for it to be successful. So I got one final question, and then we'll let you go because I know you don't want to sit here with us all night. The future of whiskey.
I've done some of these for hours. Trust me.
Yeah.
I had one last 7 hours one time. So
7 hours.
Yeah, that was, I think, my record. 7.5 hours. It was, I think I left at 3 a.m.
Wow.
That's Pacific time. So some of them were on the East Coast, just like yourselves. So I know it's much later for y'all.
Yeah, if this is a weekend, we would go 7 hours, but we have real jobs that we have to attend to in the morning. So.
That's okay. So do I.
If we ever do a Friday, maybe we'll try to beat 7. Let's do a 24-hour podcast.
Oh my gosh.
I think you could hang.
Maybe, yeah.
There might be a lot of dead air.
We'd have to have a lot of guests.
Yeah. We could do it.
Yeah, you just got to get the crowd together. Maybe Patreon.
Yeah, we could do it with Patreon for sure.
That might be a fun thing to do.
Well, we're going to do it anyway. I want Patreon to hang out with you and do a tasting as well. And,
that'd be wonderful. I'd love to do that.
We'll get together on that after this. So one final question, the future of whiskey. What are we saying? In the crystal ball.
Hopefully, the future of whiskey. One of my goals at Doc Swinson's is to open up, kind of like you were saying, like you get kind of not just bored of whiskey per se, but you've drank a lot of it, is to open up people's palates to new things. Blending is a stunning thing to be able to do. And I think the United States is finally, like blenders in the United States are finally starting to become a thing and being recognized for it. I mean, there's a lot of great blenders out there. I mean, Bardstown, for example, they do an excellent job of it. Barrel, Smoke Wagon, Magnus, etc. I mean, I think we do a pretty good job ourselves. And I think that's kind of cool, is to get people who normally don't necessarily like bourbon too involved in this, because in the end, the more people that like whiskey, the more opportunity we have to make cool new products that fit different people's, what they think is really good. So I think that's one thing is to focus on opening up the market to more people who don't typically drink whiskey. I think it is growing. We see good growth in it. The other thing is, I really hope that prices can stabilize a little bit more. For example, barrel prices have gone through the roof. I know some people are like, oh, blenders and non-producers and stuff, we're just gouging for money. I can't speak for everybody on that, but I can tell you one thing: we are not. We think we're pretty fair with our prices. All of our stuff typically, or most of our products range from anywhere from, depending on what state you're in for the record, but somewhere around $50 to $85 or so, which is, we think is really fair for what we're putting on the market.
Sure.
A couple of them reach in the hundreds just because they're really old or they're incredibly rare.
Yep.
But I'm hoping whiskey, we can find more whiskey available, especially older products, and we could keep making good products. I know there's some groups out there that kind of just check the box with a lot of things, and it kind of gives some of us bad names. So yep. I hope that maybe they disappear. I hate to say it, but yeah. In the end, we just want to give you all good whiskey.
So we actually just recorded a video link here for kind of the current market pricing and how inflation is affecting and how wholesale versus retail and the 3-tiered system. And we just did a video out on it earlier today, which is already out by the time this podcast comes out. But it's I wonder, it's going to change a lot. And I think that the bourbon boom is going to end pretty soon, only because of how much is changing. And I think that the inflation costs, a lot of people aren't spending the money that they were. And I just, it looks downhill. I don't know if it'll be like in the next 6 months, but it looks like it's on the way out.
Yeah, and sometimes, sometimes those things are okay. They're a little bit of restarts. It can knock out some of the not so great players too, sure. and hopefully leave that road open for those of us who are
for Doc Swinson
good products. For Doc Swinson, for other people too. I learn a lot from
no, I got
a lot of other blenders out there.
We have a PR person too. I understand.
Yeah, right. I think you'll see those prices kind of stabilize out, but that's not really my side of the business either. I just hope good whiskey keeps coming out on the market. More people get interested in it.
You get to do the fun part.
One of them, yeah.
Well, Jesse, we really appreciate all the time you spent with us. We cannot wait to do hopefully another podcast in the future, but also the thing with the Patreon. And these 2 bottles are going to end up at our doorsteps at some point.
Heck yeah. For sure. I love it. Love to hear that. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming.
Yep.
All right, everybody. Have a good week. Goodbye.